Next speaker is Dr. Tegu. She is going to present her case on management of difficult eye syndrome. Dr. Julie, can you start sharing your screen?
Yeah, sure. So because we don't have much time, so my topic is never losing hope. And so this journey is of a 47-year-old man whom I happened to see in 2019. And somehow he was the last patient in the OPD, and we helped him take a vehicle back to his home because his vision was poor. And that is how maybe we gained his trust, and he never left us, and we also did not leave him throughout this course. So I'll be running my presentation through a video. So the left eye had extensive iridocorneal adhesion. The right eye was almost absolute with a lot of corneal scarring and vascularization with extensive iridocorneal adhesions. So the left eye, the vision was 636 initially, 624, sorry, and then it dropped to 636 with the advent of development of cataract. And cataract surgery was planned. It was not an easy surgery because there was very little space in the anterior chamber with a lot of iridocorneal adhesions up to the mid periphery of the cornea. So iris hooks was placed, and a very careful cataract surgery was done. During Rexis, what I realized was that there were more membranes over the capsule than I had expected. But somehow it was very important that we get the cataract out and we can put an IOL so that later on the glaucoma management becomes much easier that way if we have a lens in the bag. So post cataract surgery, the vision improved to 618. However, the pressure started to increase. It rose to 20 millimeters of mercury on maximum medical treatment. So the next step, we thought that we'd be doing a trabeculectomy to control the pressure in the meantime. And trabeculectomy surgery was being performed, and we made a little flap, and intended to do a lasterostomy, thinking that it might be blocked by the proliferating endothelial cells. So the sclerostomy is being performed. However, now in the next step, the moment we held the iris with the forceps, what we noticed was that there was vitreous prolapse. Because of the extensive adhesions, so the lens the apparatus may have come forward, and that is why the vitreous was present there. Vitrectomy was done, and the trabeculectomy was completed. The pressures were well controlled in the next 4 months. However, the further quantity compensation was noted, and the vision was dropped to 2/60. So you can see that the cornea had actually decompensated more because of the multiple surgeries that was done and the disease itself. And so a penetrating keratoplasty surgery was done, and it was done by Dr. Umang Mathur. So during the keratoplasty procedure, gentle separation of the adhesions were attempted, and you can see that very careful and gentle dissections were done so that the cornea button can be separated from the underlying iris. And finally, the cornea could be separated.
You have 1 minute remaining, ma'am.
Yes. And the PK was just completed. And the button and the keratoplasty was completed. So after the surgery, the vision improved to 618, but again the blood started to fade and the pressures started to rise. And finally, because we did an ADI implant for him recently in September 2021. And following the surgery, his vision actually improved to 624, and his pressures were maintained on the combination drug in the interim period. So in the last follow-up, after his tube had opened up, his pressures were maintained at 10 and his vision is improved to 618 NA. And so this is a slit lamp video of his last follow-up. So we can see that the graph clarity was 4+, and he had developed some PCF for which capsulotomy was done. And the eye was pretty quiet, and the bleb was well formed over the plate. And So he was a happy
The time
patient.
is up, ma'am.
Yeah. So that's what I know. We never lost hope during this entire journey that with this patient, and it was a wonderful team effort. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So the case is open for discussion. Dr. Chandra. Yeah. Are you there, Dr. Chandrima, ma'am?
Yes. Can you hear me? Yes. Yeah. So at the outset, I'd like to congratulate Dr. Julie because I think it was a brilliantly managed case, and I don't think I would have done anything differently from this. But just to make a few points, that the ICE syndrome is definitely a very difficult case to manage. And what she did stepwise is actually the right way. Although you can do a trabeculectomy and lens extraction, a phacoemulsification together, but it's always wise to do the corneal part of it later because you already have a compromised endothelium. So, and further inflammation would actually make it worse. So it's always best to do the corneal part of it last. And I am always in favor of doing a trabeculectomy, though literature says that the rate of success of trabeculectomy is not so good. In the early part of this century, the rate was around, say, 60, 69 of trabeculectomy success rate in the first year, but dropped down to about 25 to 30 in subsequent years, say about 5 years later. So valve or shunt actually does better. But in implanting a shunt, you need to take care of a few things. It's always wise to do a gonioscopy to see the extent of the peripheral anterior synechia, extent and height of the peripheral anterior synechia. When you're placing the tube, you ought to place the tube furthest actually to that unhealthy corneal endothelium. So it's wise to keep the tube long. And the other things which you generally face with the tube implantation is that following inflammation, the tube might get blocked, the membrane might block it, or even iris might be incarcerated into the tube. So those are the complications that you have to keep in mind and follow up the patient. Otherwise, I think it's beautifully managed. And one thing which we all look forward to as science progresses is that in the ICE syndrome, we ought to look at managing it at the cellular level, where we can stop the proliferation and transformation of the endothelial cells into that epithelial-like cells where the characteristic changes totally. So that is where actually it needs to be corrected. Otherwise, on the whole, excellently. Congratulations, Dr. Julie.
Thank you.
Dr. Feroz, could you invite Dr. Pradeep Vyas?
Yeah, hi, Dr. Pradeep. Dr. Balla, if you can share the introductory slide, that will be nice.
Yeah.
Hey, Dr. Feroz.
Hi, sir. Good evening. A short, yeah.
Slide is not moving.
Chandrima is too powerful.
Dr. Chandrima's slide is not moving. I'll just see.
I think if I can just put in a word here,
Ma'am, please go ahead.
case with IC, we have two things that actually sort of acting on the endothelium. We have whatever's happening as far as the pathogenesis is concerned. Plus you have the raised IOP also working at it. So sometimes it may be better to do either a trabeculectomy first, wait 3 months, and then think about doing a cataract surgery. Or as Chandrima said, try and do both of them together at one. So you might actually then not cause as much damage to the endothelium as was apparently sort of caused by doing just a cataract surgery alone. Because after the cataract surgery, the IOP was so high. So these are things that you can sort of prepare beforehand and say, lower the IOP first, then do a cataract surgery. You probably will have a much more amenable eye and the endothelium may not be as damaged.
But yeah, I think Dr. Ramjeet, what she rightly said, I think one probably may also go for the both things together, because many a times whatever good surgery you may do, the endothelium still may decompensate, and then even doing a cataract may become a problem. So I think that's a good idea to do both the things.